First, we're taking a look at Apple as the tech giant's first quarter results just now hitting the wires. And let's get you those numbers. EPS first quarter, $2.40. That's versus expectations of $2.35. Revenue, $124.3 billion versus expectations of $124.1 billion. So beats there on the bottom and the top for Apple. Revenue did jump about 4%. Gross margins do hang in there, 46.9%. The street was closer to 46.56. If you go through the segments here, Julie, iPhone clocks in $69.14 billion. Now the street was closer to $71.04 billion. Services, $26.34 billion. That's versus expectations of $26.1 billion. iPad is a beat at $8.09 billion. Mac is a beat at $8.99 billion. Wearables, home and accessories, that is a bit light, $11.75. The street was closer to $11.95 billion. Finally, Greater China clocks in at $18.51 billion. I did have the chance to speak with CFO Kevin Parrick about these numbers. He did point out to me the install base of active devices has reached a new all-time high across all products and geographic segments. About the iPhone number, I did ask him, obviously, did he come in lighter than what the street was looking for? Were there puts and takes that maybe the street and analysts had missed there? He pointed out, listen, iPhone results roughly flat. We saw where we rolled out Apple Intelligence, he told me, it was better than where they had not yet rolled Apple Intelligence, and said that iPhone 16 overall since the launch doing better than iPhone 15 did. He called these positive stats. Because of that, I asked him, given the difference in rollout there with Apple Intelligence, any update he could provide right now in terms of when European or Chinese regulators would approve Apple Intelligence. He said there was no update to give on that front as of yet. I asked him another question. This is one that had come up in conversation I had with analysts who kind of raised this question, are we still very early in consumer AI generally? Is it still too early, they asked, to create a really truly powerful and sustainable iPhone upgrade cycle? He said, listen, we are just starting to roll out Apple Intelligence, basically saying it's still early days. The feature set's expanding. First chapter is kind of how he summarized it. On DeepSeek, obviously that came up in conversation. Claims, again, it created a model at much lower cost than American rivals. As the cost of AI did come down, could that mean app makers, I asked him, software companies, could create that many more AI experiences? That's one theory out there, that long-term that would be a tailwind for Apple in the upgrade cycle. In general, he just said, listen, we look at innovation to drive efficiency. China, I do want to get to that and what they're seeing in the business there. And I asked him whether there are any shifts over there in terms of the macro, in terms of the competitive landscape. He said, listen, as for the results, if you look at the decline, he said some of that is a reduction in channel inventory. He said Apple Intelligence, he stressed again, has not been made available in that market yet. He also noted how national subsidies have just started rolling out there in January. So bottom line, we see beats on the bottom and the top. Looking at the initial reaction of shares here, we're flat. Remember, we don't have guidance yet, Julie. Right. Very importantly, that's going to come on the call at 5 p.m. Eastern. You wouldn't expect formal guidance, but more color and commentary.
Yeah, I mean, the stock's been bouncing between gains and losses ever since these numbers came out, in a pretty tight range here as investors are perhaps waiting for more. But I think the confirmation of all of the chatter that's been coming out in recent weeks, that Greater China sales fell by 11%, that is something that is going to be a worry to investors. Even if, the company says, yes, we're going to roll out Apple Intelligence there and things are going to improve, I think really that remains to be seen, and investors are going to want the proof that that is happening, not just the promises that is happening, whether it's the company itself saying it or some of these research firms that get a handle on that once they start rolling it out. So that's something to keep an eye on. I also think we have to put the stock move in perspective here. The stock was up 30% last year, remember. It actually hit a record high the day after Christmas, December 26th. And since then, it's down about 8% or so. So it's still trading relatively close to a record high. When coming into this report, it had dipped and then climbed a little bit. So people were maybe looking for a not worst case scenario for these numbers. And the numbers are,